This episode's guest is none other than Andy Andras, well-known and respected distance skateboarder from Miami, Florida. Most listeners will know of Andy's many accomplishments, but not everyone may know the story behind them. I definitely got more than I bargained for when speaking with him. Andy tells great stories and does so with a tremendous humility. We got into some distance skate history, including how he got his start and leading up to breaking the 300-mile barrier in 2016, as well as where he's at now with the sport and what the future looks like. He also shared his latest idea, which is something he's named Chasing Sunsets. We barely had time to cover half the things we planned to, but of course, that just leaves more for next time. As always, thank you for tuning in to the Skating in Circles podcast. All right, hello and welcome to the Skating in Circles podcast. I'm here with Andy Andras. Andy, how you doing?
I'm good, Max. Thank you for having me on. Been listening along to all your podcasts, and I was pretty excited when we sat down and talked about potentially doing one of these. So, thank you.
Yeah, it's taken a minute to find the time. We've both had busy summers, I think.
We did,
great.
But that's a good thing, man. Right? Busy lives. So this was like 6 months in the making, I think. I felt like it was like we just couldn't get our planets aligned.
Yeah, it happens though. We met up in person, oddly enough, right? Out in the Dutch Ultra Skate, and then
right in the Netherlands. We were both in Amsterdam, and we were kind of like, oh, should we try to do the podcast? And then it was just too much going on there, and having too much fun there I think for either one of us to sit down and actually get this done. So
for sure.
But here we are.
Yeah. And you're still out on vacation, right? You're in California right now?
I'm out in Huntington Beach right now. So and looking to go do some more fun things for the next couple of weeks out west, because I'm originally live in Miami Beach in Florida. Mm-hmm. So I'm on the other coast
to coast. Yeah, we'll talk more about coast to coast, especially with Florida, the ride you went on. I want to hear about that.
Yes.
That sounded awesome.
Yes.
But before we get into that, I got to ask you, what motivates you?
What motivates me? I think what I like these days, and what, even looking back at a lot of the others, either accomplishments or things I've done in my life, I think it all comes down to experience, or like the experience of life, of doing something. So say, for instance, I feel like we come to this planet in human form to experience things, whether they're happy, they're sad, they're painful, I feel like sometimes you have experiences just in your everyday life, and then there are experience that you have when you go and try to have an adventure or something like that. So I would say what motivates me is to keep me going would be to have the most experiences I can in my lifetime, whether they're fun and awesome or painful and hurt or anything in between. I think that's just what ultimately makes our souls grow, and it makes us, more well-rounded humans.
For sure. I think there's a lot to be said about that. Like what you're getting at, like with experiencing new things, not only do you feel it certain ways, right? You go through emotions, you go through a range of feelings, but you also meet people along the way. You learn about the world, you learn about different upbringings, different perspectives, and like that helps you grow as well.
Broadening your horizons, I guess, would be the word that would encompass this. Is you broaden your horizons through experiences, and I think that's what kind of motivates me these days. So whether it's I'm gonna try to go take on some crazy endurance challenge, and you suffer through it, and you meet people there and whatever, and you're like, whether you finished or you DNF'd or whatever, it was all an experience,
Yeah, I love that.
So something along those lines, I think, is kind of what keeps me going, because because purely just to do it, just to say, hey, I finished or whatever, I feel like you start to cheat yourself out of, you narrow too much your mindset, and then you don't quite experience. It was kind of funny. Mark, G-Bomb Mark, sent me a text after this past Miami Ultra, and he was like, God, he goes, that was really nice. He goes, you pulled up alongside me while you're competing, and you just hung out, and we had a great conversation, and we talked for a while and stuff like that. And he was like, and internally he was feeling bad because he was like, am I holding him up? Is he like, he could have got 3 more laps in right now. And I was like, no, Mark, I was like, that's just the new approach of how I'm doing things. Like sometimes you just got to slow down, pace with somebody and chat with them, and and see how they're doing or whatever. And it's not all about just like, oh, I gotta stay exactly on the pace, or or any of that kind of stuff. So anyways, that was kind of something that it made me realize that I was kind of funny.
Yeah, I love that you pointed that out specifically, because it reminds me of like something I learned from doing this podcast and like getting to know more people is the importance of community in what we do, right? Or specifically like distance skateboarding, right? It's all about the community in the end. Like you wouldn't go to Ultra Skate if other people weren't there, and just like the value of listening to people too, right? And
Yep.
understanding like with you and G-Bomb Mark, right? Like obviously you're skating more miles than him, but like the conversation is so valuable, right? It's not about
Yes.
what your performance is necessarily, and maybe that's what he was coming from. He was like, oh, I don't want to hold him back, but he was actually making your experience better, right? So like,
Exactly. In past, it would have been, I'm trying to get exactly to 300 miles. I can't go slower than 12.5 miles an hour. Must keep this pace, and so he was probably used to seeing, something like that from me. And, now it's what's the term? Stop and smell the roses.
yeah,
So that's where I'm kind of finding myself a little bit in this chapter of my life, man.
nice. I do admire the disciplined approach of, I'm going to skate 6 minutes, 650, whatever laps at Ultra Skate.
Yeah.
It's
The
impressive,
6.5
right?
minute lap, that damn 6.5 minute lap that's ingrained in everybody's mind who has ever tried to go for 300 on the Miami Ultra Skate, the Homestead Speedway track. Yep. That's basically what you have to be clocking on that thing nonstop from
Yeah.
start to finish to hit 300 miles.
Yeah. And it's super admirable, right? Like it's really hard to do, and it's
It is.
worth trying if you think you can do it. But I
No,
love your
totally.
approach now too. Is a great way to take it.
And listen, and I don't ever mean to deter anybody or anything like that from their accomplishments or their goals. But those that have been in this sport for quite a while, and those who have done ultra skate, know like how ridiculously hard that is to maintain that pace nonstop for 24 hours. It is kind of funny when people, come out of the woodwork that you've never met before, that have never done the sport, and they're like, oh, I'm going to do 300. And I'm just like, dude, I love your enthusiasm. I love your energy. Like, yes, go for it. But but the ultra skate will serve up the biggest humble pies to you in your life, man. And it has happened, constantly throughout, the 13 years that I've been hosting that event. It has constantly happened.
I don't think
So
anyone who's done enough of them has ever had a year where they didn't like underestimate Ultra Skate, right? Like whether you've done it before, you come back, you're like, oh, I've done this before. And it's like, no, it's not any easier. Like it's gonna kick your ass, right? You have to respect the challenge.
yes, there was a funny little drawing that I used to post it a lot in one of the social medias. I don't know. I'm so horrible at social media and posting stuff there. But it was a it was a funny picture where it was like, it said your first ultra skate, and it just shows a guy walking and stepping on a rake, and the rake comes up and smacks him in his face, and it's like, that's your first ultra skate. And then it would be like your 10th ultra skate shows a guy like on a skateboard doing some crazy like ollie flip, whatever, and then he lands it, but then the rake still comes up and hits him in the face. So it doesn't matter your first or your 50th ultra, they all gonna wind up, with you in pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Beating yourself up, one way or the other. You might be wiser to it, you might be better, you might have your nutrition dialed in, you might be better trained, but there's no way to get away from, doing something for 24 hours without leaving a piece of your soul on the track, as I often say.
Yeah,
That happens a lot. Like every time you do an ultra skate, you leave a little chunk of your soul on that tarmac out there.
for sure. When was your first time skating? When was your first time out, like on a skateboard?
So my first time on a skateboard, gosh, would probably be like, some banana board, penny type board, as a young kid. My childhood was in Spain and Madrid, and I was pretty dual cultured raised because my father was in the Air Force. He was stationed there. My mother she was a local Spaniard from Madrid. So I grew up very American and very Spanish. Like I went to school on base with American kids, played baseball, American football, you know, studied, the English curriculum of what is usually taught in the United States. And then I lived off base with my Spanish family and had Spanish friends and that. So I kind of grew up very in between two worlds, or knowing two worlds, my whole childhood. First time I probably picked up a skateboard was in the streets there in Madrid with some friends, and it was a cheesy little banana board, didn't know
Yeah,
nothing about it. It was just more goofing around on it. But then in the late 80s, when there was a big surge in the skateboard world, kind of got, very popular. And back then it was vert riding, I think was the big one. And that was Tony Hawk, was Christian Hosoi, Mark Gator, whatever. These guys were all coming up and they were doing these huge tricks and who could pull off the McTwist. And,
yeah,
that was the
that's
big
cool.
that was the big whole thing in the late 80s. So when that came around, that caught wind with the American kids on base. So that's where I kind of was introduced to, like, the cool side of skateboarding, and there was tricks and there was boards and all that. So from there, it was I really loved it. I was pretty active kid, pretty couldn't sit still. I was always running around and doing stuff, playing all kinds of sports. But there was something interesting about skateboarding. I kind of like the individuality of it. The no rules, the no referees, the no this. It was just, you and your skateboard. It was a form of transportation. Also, I loved that I could get around Madrid, one place to another. And it was funny enough because looking back on it, there was a couple key things that, like, now I can see, like, oh wow, like there was one time I got in an argument with my parents because I wanted to go. We were living in Madrid, and the base was, I don't know, maybe a good 10 miles away, the military base. And I wanted to get back to the base to go skate the half pipe with my friends. And my mom was like, I'm not going to the base this weekend. Like, I'm going to go then. And of course, my mom always is just like, yeah, oh, yeah, let's see it go. And I got on my skateboard and I skateboarded 10 miles. I skateboarded 10 miles, no water, no food, no nothing, and
Wow.
skated all the way to the front gates of the base where, I had to show my little military ID to get in, and I skated the base 10 miles. So that was a funny one. And the other one was that from early on, was a natural switch pusher. And it happened because I naturally skated goofy footed, was my original way, right? So I could push goofy. But then when I started to learn tricks, I couldn't ollie goofy. I could only ollie regular foot. And it was because I was learning and I was standing next to a guy that was teaching me how to ollie, and he was regular foot. So I stood on the board regular foot right behind him and would sit there and practice. And then I realized I learned how to ollie regular foot, but I was a natural goofy footed pusher. So
Wow.
of course, the first thing I did was I started skating around regular foot, but I wanted to use my goofy foot legs. So I started becoming a Mongo pusher was the first thing I did. So my original start was Mongo pushing, riding regular to do my tricks. And then of course from there quickly I started realizing, like, well, I just need to start pushing with this other leg because that's the stance.
Yeah.
So I remember early on in my skateboarding, I was instantly a switch pusher. Like I could push with both legs from a very young age. So
Wow, that's really cool.
yeah, who would have thought, 20, 30 years later that would have been, a skill set that would bring me to accomplishing 300 miles, or a lot of the other events that I have competed and won. So
Yeah, that's awesome because like I feel like in street skateboarding, switch pushing is not really a thing, right? You just push Mongo, right? If you're riding
right.
switch.
Yeah, some people would just push Mongo and stick with that because they would never
Yeah.
really, I guess just the thought process is they never really think about distributing to both legs. Yeah, the good thing they're good at is riding switch in the sense of doing a trick or something, or going from a backward stance to doing something, and being a directional skater, the front and the back of their board type thing. But they don't never really concentrate or think about pushing with both legs. So
Right. Also, I feel like back then though, you're riding like maybe a board with bigger wheels than like a street skateboard in the later '90s, right? Because you're saying this is like the '80s.
yeah, this
So,
was like the late '80s, early '90s, which they had a transition. That was during that era. There was a big transition where vert was not cool anymore, and then the street skating all of a sudden started to pop up.
mhm.
These brands like World Industry and whatever, and there was kind of a transition. So I was kind of caught in the between of both of those worlds. So, but I liked skating everything. I liked skating vert. I liked skating pools. The big skate park in Madrid was all bowls. It had bowls. It was all concrete, and then so I grew up skating that too. And then we would hit the streets, go hit our favorite little handrail spot and stairs and whatever, and some plaza in Madrid, La Castellana, I think was one of the big ones. So I would skate everything.
Do you have like pictures of those days that you
You
look
know
at?
what? I don't. I don't.
Wow.
This is an era where like a bunch of punk kids, we just didn't really carry around cameras because I literally cannot, like, for the life of me, dig up any kind of photo of that era, and it kind of sucks because I really wish that I had something, but it was just we didn't have. I mean, at best back then was a Polaroid camera that you could shoot, and
Yeah.
nobody's gonna skate around with a big old bulky Polaroid camera and take pictures. So really, I don't have a single photo of that era of me skating.
Yeah, you'd really need like a photographer or someone at that point.
Yep,
Um,
yep. So we didn't have any of
that's
that.
tricky.
A lot of fun though was when the pro skaters would come on. We'd have Pal Peralta come through, GNS came through. That was a lot of fun because they would come to that skate park in Madrid, and of course, since we were all American kids, we could go talk to them, and they'd let us hang out with them, and we would take them to our skate spots. So I had hung out with quite a few pro skaters. That was pretty cool
Oh,
back in
that's
the day.
awesome.
So that was always kind of a perk if you're out overseas and you got to go see, or Americans would come through with something.
Hmm. We had Randy McClelland on the show like a
Yes,
few months
I
ago.
listened to his podcast. I was like, really, that was really rad when he had his story too, and the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was like lucky enough that he was like sponsored or someone, so someone was taking pictures at like one time. But that was just
Yeah.
like I said, it was just lucky. But yeah, so you're doing, you're in Madrid, like you grew up and you're skating, like you're a skateboarder, like
Yeah.
and then when did you sort of like start doing like distance, like because distance skateboarding kind of became a thing in the early 2000s, right? So that's like 20 years maybe
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, so funny. The skateboard kind of got put up once I finished high school, and so we moved stateside. My dad got stationed in McDill, which was Tampa area. So that was high school for me, and that was kind of my first introduction to the United States and actually living stateside. Because for my whole life, I pretty much lived over in Europe and in Spain. So from there, I skated still some in Tampa. I went to the skate parks, this, that, the other. But especially once a driver's license comes in, I found my board sitting in the trunk of my car more often than using it. So it kind of started to fall off a little bit. And then I went in the military. Went in the military myself. I did kind of like follow my father's steps and joined the Air Force, hoping to go back to Europe. And instead, I got sent to Korea. I went the other way. So but it was fun. It was all good, a great experience. Taught me my trade now as a firefighter, paramedic. That was my job in the Air Force. I was a firefighter.
Oh, nice.
So it kind of taught me my trade that I do now in my career. I started learning, a lot more about athletics too in the military. Like I played on the Air Force rugby team. I got really into fitness in the Air Force. Started learning how to work out, how to train, how to do a lot of stuff. But even still in that era, that's my early 20s. I was like a gym meathead. Lifting heavy weights. How much can I deadlift? How much can I bench press? Type thing. Endurance sports was nowhere on the horizon for me. It was kind of weird that kind of popped up when it did, kind of came in sync with when the rise of distance skateboarding or push skateboarding was kind of coming up. So this catches me probably in my 30s. So I'm in my 30s. By then, I'm out of the military. I'm working, I'm working as a fireman in Miami. And it started with a buddy of mine, Joe Falcone. Me and him were stationed in Korea together. And he's also from Florida. So when he got out of the military, he was, became a firefighter in his respective area, which was the Boca Raton area. So Del Rey Fire Department. So he's a fireman over there. I'm a fireman down in Miami, and we're still, hanging out, and we stayed in touch the whole time. And he sends me this video of this adventure race called the Death Race.
Mm.
And it was, the purposes of it was, there's no time limit. You don't know what you're showing up to do. And their sole purpose is to make you quit. It's like they just make it, so it's kind of like pseudo, like military style, like, carry these tires up this mountain. And it's all taking place in the green mountains of Vermont. And so you don't know what each challenge is as you come showing up to checkpoints. And they're just ridiculous things like carry this log stump up there. Now memorize the 10 presidents, bring it back down, recite it. If you couldn't get it right, carry the log all the way back up the mountain again to read the presidents again, come back down, just
Wow.
really sadistic stuff that, and for some reason I just saw that and I was like, I want to be challenged like that. I'm in my life, I'm at a point now where that's what, like, I want that. I want to just get the crap beat out of me, and I want to see where my breaking point is. So that was kind of the introduction to kind of endurance sports, or doing something like long and sadistic and like just grinding, And it was funny. So I kind of started training for this thing, and it was kind of a blast. I mean, it was very strange. Like, they would give you a gear list that was just like, the wackiest things to bring, like tap dancing shoes, a Tyvek suit, 50 feet of rope, an axe, just very odd end things. So,
What?
and trust me, I'm doing this thing, and I'm carrying this gear list with me, and I'm like, and most of the times that I wanted to really quit, I didn't, because I wanted to see, like, what are they going to make me do with a diaper and Tyvek suits? What are they going to make me do with with tap dancing shoes? And if you didn't make that checkpoint where you needed that specific thing to pass that checkpoint, you wouldn't see it. So it was funny. So I hung into that event much longer than I probably could have or should have, purely just out of the curiosity of, like, I want to see, like, why I need 50 feet of rope and whatever. So funny.
It's wild.
So they decided in this event that the Death Race, that they would call it when they got down to 10% people left. They figured that because it would be 300 people would sign up. So if 30 people were left in the event, they would call it. They would say the event, they would stop the event, because they basically kind of thought in their mind, like, if they haven't quit by now, we'll probably kill these people before, like, they're willing to die before giving up. So probably for health reasons, they were like, if we can dwindle this down to 10%, then we should just call it. And so that is essentially the ending or the finish. So I competed in this race, this event, whatever you want to call it, 3 years. And so 2 out of the 3, I was the 10% that finished. So
wow.
you get this cheesy little skull that says, like, Death Race on it, like you're a finisher of the Death Race. And I was just like, oh, all right. It was kind of funny because you hold it all like, and then you realize, like, man, this is something I could buy off of eBay for like 10 cents.
Right. Yeah.
A cheesy little metal. But it was the experience. It was the experience of doing it, and it was just, it was a lot of fun. It was very hard. And they lasted like 72. I mean, and this was like, it was nonstop. There was no time. They didn't let you sleep. You were deliriously, like, wrecked. Every now and then they'd send you back through base camp to where you could, like, reload up with calories and grab stuff. But there was no time. I mean, you were drinking water out of the streams up there. You were just trying to figure out how to survive, because they did not tend to you one bit. You'd show up to a checkpoint and bitch about something and be like, yeah, you should just quit. That's all they would tell you. Quit. They just wanted you to quit.
Wow.
And they did. Yeah, so these events would go on for like 3 days in a row because they're trying to dwindle down everybody.
That's so
And the
crazy.
more people would come trained and the more people would come hardened for this event, the longer it would last because it would take people longer to quit. So it was they were pretty wild. But anyways, due to that, and and I was kind of like, we signed up for that thing, me and Joe, and we're like, well, we need some trail running experience. We need to be like out in the woods. We're both city boys. We're from South Florida. All we know is beaches and metropolitan areas. So we started signing up for trail running events, me and Joe, and we started knocking off some 50 milers and then some 100 milers, and we're getting some experience purely on that. So that's one side. The other side is here. I'm living on Miami Beach. It's a great place to commute on a longboard, and I started seeing the longboards everywhere, and everybody's commuting on longboards. What is this? Probably 2010-ish, around that era, maybe a little bit, a couple years earlier than that. It's the 2000s.
Yeah.
It's early 2000s, and the longboard craze has kind of hit, and like everybody's riding a longboard. And I was like, well, that's totally me. I'm a skater. Like I'm not. So I was just commuting around on my longboard and, riding around. And one day some guy, I'd go pick up my kids at school with go to the elementary school. And I had this big, huge longboard that I could basically sit my kid on the front of, and I would push back, home, and I would pick up my kids on my longboard from school and stuff. So, but one day I was commuting somewhere and some dude comes up to me and goes, hey, we're doing the South Beach Bomb. And I was like, okay, like what? He goes, it's a longboard race. It's an outlaw longboard race. And he goes, we're meeting at whatever time. It's this is clandestine. It's all secret, because it's an outlaw race. This was the Miami Longboard Club, who were a group of guys, mostly garagers. They loved sneaking in the garages, and they were garaging. This was the
Yeah, that was big back then.
but they wanted to host it, so this was my introduction basically into push racing or the competitive side. So I show up there, I'm on a top mount skateboard with a tail on it and everything, because that's what I rode, and it was funny, and I race this thing and I win it. I totally win it. I'm switch pushing, I'm doing my thing, and I freaking totally win this fucking thing. And it was pretty funny because all these guys, they're younger adults. All the guys from the Miami Longboard Club, and so and I'm guessing they thought somebody in their crew was going to get it. So I win this thing, and I'm like at the finish line with my kids and stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, some dad won," pointing at me, and they're like, "Some dad won." It's like because everybody was asking like, "Who won it? Who won it? Did you get it? Did you get it?" And they're like, "No, that guy over there, that guy with the kids, the dad won."
Oh, I love that. You were just the dad who showed up and smoked everybody.
I was just some dad that showed up and freaking won the South Beach Bomb. But that opened my eyes to, like, I thought it was super exciting. I thought there was something there. I thought it was neat. And I was just kind of like, man, I was like, this kind of like brings in my two passions that are in my life right now, that are, now doing these endurance type events and adventures, and it draws in my skateboarding past. I was like, bro, this is like perfect. I love this. And I was like, God, I wish this existed in a bigger capacity. And so lo and behold, within that year, all of a sudden these Adrenalina marathons get announced, and I was just like, oh wow. And mind you, I've never really ran much before that or anything. So it was like, man, how do I even train for that? Like, there's nothing for skateboarding and whatever. So I remember reading up on a bunch of like marathon running books and stuff like that, and try to learn about more nutrition stuff and things like that. And it's funny because it's a reoccurring thing that I hear in a lot of your podcasts and from a lot of people when you talk about kind of like the first time they show up to a major like event with like really good people in it, and they or maybe a lot of people that come first time to ultra, and you don't know where you stack up against real competition. So you show up in your mind thinking you're gonna win, you're gonna be the badass, you're gonna smoke all these people. They don't understand who you are, what your abilities are, and you're gonna show them, right?
Yep, every time.
So that was the exact same frame for the very first Adrenaline. It was hosted down in Hollandale, which is just north there of Miami. It's kind of like in between the border of like Miami-Dade and Broward, going into Fort Lauderdale. So Hollandale is where they're hosting this Adrenalina, 26.2 mile marathon skateboard race. And I trained for it, and I was hitting it, and there was numbers up to because they were already talking about this kid in England, and Elver, I can't remember his name,
Oh, yeah.
Matt Elver, Matt something like
Yeah,
that. So
something
he
like
had
that.
pushed like an hour 40 something marathon distance. So there was a recorded time, like there was a baseline. And I was kind of on the numbers. So I was kind of thinking like, and then plus just the hype of the event, like I'm gonna break that record, and I'm gonna win this thing. And they were putting up ridiculous cash money for this event too. The whole Adrenalina thing
Yeah.
was just way over the top. It was, we're giving out $10,000 prize purse and all this stuff. Later looking at it, you're just like, there was no way that was sustainable or anything was. But the cool thing about it and the prize purse is it brought people from all over the United States. People came out from Cali, all the New York guys, the Bustin' crew came down. Like, it was a huge event. There was, hundreds of people lined up, towed up to start this thing.
As unsustainable as it is, right? The $10,000 purse, it does bring out the crowds. Like, there's something to be said about that. And
It
it grew
did.
the sport.
It brought out crowds, and only one person's going to get that money. But there was a lot of
Yeah.
pretenders standing on that line, all with the delusion, and I was one of them. Of like, I'm going to win that $10,000. Watch me go.
Mhm.
And so the gun goes off, and it was quickly. It was funny. I have a photo of it, and it was funny because it was me pushing, and then it was Jeff Vine from Pantheon was right behind me. So I was like, oh my God. I was like, that's so early in the race, because that was the only time I saw that guy in that whole event. Him and Paul Kent and those guys just freaking,
Blasted off.
and quite a few other guys up there from the New York. Andre Hippix was another one that was really fast. You had it from out west, the guy Robin McGurk, the leg, they called him, because he was a one-legged pusher. That's where I met Conan. Conan Gay came out, he was another one-legged pusher. James Peters, the originator of the 24-hour ultra skate, he was there. Like, just all these people that were just, amazing people that just, and they just blew my doors off. It wasn't even close. I think I finished maybe in the top 20 of that event, maybe. And that was still with a decent, hour 40 something marathon
That's
time.
a great time, these guys, honestly. Yeah.
But there was just so many people that, it was, that only gave me a top 20 finish. Kiefer Dixon, like, I can just go down the list.
That's
Everybody
another
was
one,
there.
yeah.
Everybody was there, man. I can just go down the list and keep dropping names. It was very cool. So that went on for a couple years, the whole Adrenalina marathon. I raced almost all of them. I think there was one where I had a broken foot. I broke my foot in jiu-jitsu.
I think I saw you in the video for the one in Portugal. Was there one in Portugal?
No, Puerto Rico.
That's what it is. Yeah,
Puerto
and it's
Rico.
super wet. And
yeah, it was all wet conditions. It was a mess. The race was a mess. It was a very strange course too, where we were skating on a 2-lane road, and then you had to turn around in the median and come completely back. And it was just these complete turnarounds and these wet roads where every time you tried to hit that turn, you just slid out. So it was almost like known, like you get low, grip your board, try to make the turn, and you would just slide. The board would slide. You would slide on your butt. You would hit the curb. That would stop you, and then you'd have to start. So it was almost like stop and goes. It was almost like we did a marathon of repeat stop and goes, back and forth. It was,
that's
to me,
brutal.
it was a horrible course. But those stop and goes, and I think it was a big reason why Kiefer won that event, was because Kiefer is a really good, he's a good sprinter. He's good at going from 0 to 100 really fast, because of his street skating, his New York style street skating, and why he was untouchable in the bomb is he's just really good at, like, maybe you have to slow down a little bit and now you have to speed up. So it fit him perfectly. And he took that to advantage. And then when everybody has to slow down and then start back up again, he timed it right. And on the final lap, he freaking smoked Jeff and Paul and everybody and took that win.
That's a really cool observation, actually. Like,
yeah.
And it's something I don't think we see, or we haven't seen it been able to like experience a ton in recent years because it's more of like a short race thing where the course favors a certain type of skater. And
Yeah.
it's really fun to consider that point because yeah, you're right. Kiefer did win that one, and Paul was smoking all of the adrenalinas up to that point. So
Yep. Funny talking about that real quick is race strategies. So I remember as a kid, cycling is huge in Spain, right? So I remember as a kid, like all my friends being into cycling and wanting to watch it and stuff like that. At the time, Miguel Indurain, a Spaniard, he was kind of like he was the bee's knees in cycling back then, and he was winning Tour de France's and stuff. And I used to look at them and watching it, and I'm like, why the hell are you guys watching people ride their bike for 5 hours every day? Like, this is the most boring thing to watch. And it was funny when I got into the distance skateboarding racing, I found myself like completely intrigued in cycling because of the race strategy, watching those race strategies and how they would, run the peloton, how the attacks would go out, how the peloton would swallow them back up, or how people would save their energy by drafting and then go for the final sprint, or the ones that weren't good sprinters had to go out on the attack early. And I learned so much in racing due to that. So yeah, there was a part where you also have to become very studious in race strategy.
yeah,
For our events. But anyways, side note, getting back to our story. Yeah. So the adrenalinas are going on, and so now here I'm meeting people. I'm meeting Conan. I'm meeting James. I'm meeting people, and I like the adrenalinas, but I realized I wanted something more. I wanted something more grueling. I'm coming off of doing, death races and stuff. Like,
yeah.
I'm looking for something that's like really hard, and I wasn't sure what there was out there. At the time, Paul Kent had videos out, his long treks on skate decks,
Yep.
where he would go and skate pack countries and stuff like that. So I was kind of more looking at that kind of realm of this whole thing. So the 188-mile challenge, what they call the Silver Comet Ladiga Trail. It has, it's funny. You try to say the full name for this event, and it's just like a tongue twister almost. But Marion Carr, a guy who also was kind of an open road skater, he had done some, state to state rides and stuff like that. He was the brainchild of this. I guess somewhere he found that trail and was just like, I have an awesome trail for you guys. We're going to do 188 miles, a stage race over 3 days, and we're going to skate this trail and go all the way out. And it started, in Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, and it gets you all the way into Alabama. And you come back, and it's a rails to trail. So meaning it was an old railroad track that they have paved over. So an old rails to trail, and with all kinds of varying conditions. I mean, you would have some areas that were great asphalt. You had areas that was brushed concrete that would drive you nuts. And throughout the 188 miles, you might find an area that's flooded. You might find an area that's, full of debris and sticks and those gumball things they talk about that would eat you up. So it was fun. It was kind of exciting, and, and you didn't know what you were going to come. It wasn't a perfectly, a perfect set trail for you to do. And it was cool. It had the whole stages that you would, skate into a town and stay the night there. And the next day, stage 2 starts. And
pick up where
so
you left off.
it really kind of, attracted me. That was the, so he starts off this event, the inaugurals of these, what we termed them as the Ladiga, which is the Alabama section of the trail, is called the Chief Ladiga. So we just, for short, we called it always the Ladiga. And I was, and luckily I was able to be, one of the 13 that was the inaugural year of that. And some great people came out. Paul Kent came out, Jeff came out, Conan over from the West Coast. Same thing. James Peters came out, and and we're racing in this thing, and it was just. It was just really awesome, because now here you're like, you need a pack, you need to bring your water, there's a lot more involved in nutrition, you got to survive this trail. Day 2 is like super hilly, so you're like bombing down hills, and and there's all these crazy chicane turns where like people are leaving skin all over the the course. There was a bunch of people. I mean, I know Jeff wound up with 10 stitches on his ass. Marion Carr busted his knee open. Like, there was a bunch of people leaving skin behind. And those are great events. But that's where I discovered that there was a 24-hour race, because I heard between one of the stages, we were all just hanging out and talking, and Conan and James Peters were talking, and I was just like, wait. I'm like, there's a 24-hour skateboard race? And they're like, yeah, no, I
What?
hosted, like Conan's done it before, like, and they started talking about it, and like, yeah, there's only like a handful of people that can make it to 200 miles, on this thing. And I was just like, that was it. I was drawn. I was like, I have to do this. I
Yeah.
have to do this event. Like, this is insane. Like, you get to skateboard for 24 hours, like as much as you want. Like, yeah. I was like, wow. So that's where kind of the 24-hour thing kind of started my whole trajectory on that whole little part of my life. It was all because I went and did that La Diga and skated and met these guys, and they told me that, they have a 24-hour race.
It's a real snowball effect, right? Like you kind of just like dipped your toes one day and then you're like, oh, I kind of want more. And like you already had the skateboarding experience and it just really built up into something.
Yeah, no, it is neat when you look now back at it and you see like the progression of things and the doors that open because you did this, because you did that, because you went to do this, and you can do that in your whole life period. There's times where you're just like, because that door got slammed in my face somewhere, another door opened up, and I'm so much happier that did happen because look at the trajectory I'm on now. So it's kind of funny, life when you kind of look back at it like that and how things play out, and you're just like, that's why that happened. And even though I was miserable at that time, look where it brought me today, and you're just like, yes. And that kind of goes all the way back to the beginning of what we're talking about, experiences, just having experiences and living life and, and getting as much of that in as possible, because you never know what's going to bring, what that experience will bring, who you'll meet in that, where that'll send you off on a trajectory in your life.
Definitely. There's a ton of value in just looking back on it and being grateful for it too. Yes. I think a lot, right? Especially endurance athletes work so hard, months, and then you do the one thing and you might even accomplish your goal. And then days after you're like, oh, now what? Right? Like it can be almost depressing. But being able to look back on it and be like, oh no, I got the experience, and like recognizing how much you've gained from it will help you like realize the value.
Yeah, the value in it. The value in it is tremendous. So next thing I know, I'm flying out west to the West Coast, Pacific Northwest, to go do a 24-hour ultra skate. It was a handful of people. They're small attended. They weren't super up on, I don't think, on a lot of people's radar for this thing. I go out there, and at the time, the record was 250 miles set by Paul Kent, of course. And I was training for it, and I was kind of doing the math on it, and I was like, it seems doable. Like, I think I can do it. I think I can get at least close. Like, let's get one under my belt and go from there. Mm-hmm. So I go out west. I would say 20 out of 24 hours, of course, Pacific Northwest on the coast. It freaking rains. It rained on me the whole time. And it was miserable. And it was miserable in the middle of the night. And I'm just getting drenched on. And I'm pushing through puddles. And I'm just trying to get it done, and I'm grinding. And I finish up with 230 miles, right? So, not bad.
Yeah, that's great.
For a first go. And especially with the conditions and not knowing really what the hell. I always tell people when people are like, I want to try ultra skate. And I'm like, listen, you need to do just one first. I'm like, throw the expectations out the window, what you think you're going to do, what number you're going to hit. I was like, just experience it, because when you experience it, it's such an epiphany. It's such oh, I get it. Now I understand. Now I understand how I need to train. Now I understand like how I need to clean, get the diet right, get the nutrition right, how to it's just such a all, because it's just impossible to understand what the totality of skating or trying to skate for 24 hours nonstop really is about, especially if you're trying to hit a big goal and you want to stay upright and you want to skate, with minimal breaks all 24 hours.
Yeah.
So it really takes the first one to have the epiphany and to set you on the course for success on doing them later. I did that one. I came back home and my gears were turning. I was hooked. I was just like, this is it. And I got kind of very narrow focused with, I'm going to break that record and I can do this. And that became basically my all encompassing, like my training all year long was all geared towards ultra skate. Sure, I still kept doing Ladigas and all these other races that would come up, but I never trained like sprints or trained this or trained specifically for any event. I was in shape because I was skating for ultra skate all year long. Was pretty much my thing. I had a lot of the adventure racing kind of fell to the wayside, a lot of my running. So I was very focused for a good chunk of years. So we're talking 2013 upwards to, I would say a good 5-year window there where I was bent on doing this. And part of it was also trying to host the event. I was like, what if we brought that race to Miami? What if we brought it somewhere where it's like, I know I'm going to have better weather conditions. Obviously we have to do it wintertime. I mean, we would probably kill people if we tried to host ultra skate in summer in Miami. So I was like, in a winter month, and that's when I reached out to Joner, who hosted the Adrenalinas for the company Adrenalina. Actually, those Adrenalinas were named after a sports store, and they had reached out and hired Joner to put on those events for him. So that's how Joner kind of got into the whole distance skateboarding event. And so he was around. He lived in Miami, so I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, I want to host this 24-hour race." He's laughing. He's just looking at me like, "What?" He was kind of like, "There's a 24 hour." I'm like, yeah. Like James Peters host, he's the one that kind of created this thing. And so he was like, "All right, Andy." He's like, and I told him, I was like, "I think I can, I did 230s so far, 250s the records. Like, I think I can gun this thing down." Him and I became, a friendship through, which we kind of knew each other, but we definitely became, good buddies through, hosting this event. There's a whole big story of how we wound up at the track, but it was kind of like a pipe dream that we were just kind of like sitting around talking about places where to host it at, and there just was not anything really good in Miami. I couldn't find a good trail. There was a couple places that we kind of thought about it and we're just like, no, this isn't going to work, or this is too big, or this is like, one of them was this place called Shark Valley, and it's a 9-mile loop out in the middle of the Everglades. And literally we went out there and rode it on our bikes, and there are gators hanging out on the shore banks. And I'm like, and I started envisioning people from like New York coming. I'm like, they're going to freak out in the middle of the night with a headlamp on, and you're staring at eyeballs all on the side, like of gators just staring you down. And then on top of that, a huge 9-mile loop where you're gone for hours could be,
No, there's no way.
Yeah, we were covered in mosquitoes just with one lap. We came back, we were like head to toe, like covered in mosquitoes, like it was horrible. I think brainstorming, somebody goes, "Hey, what if we did it on the NASCAR track of the Homestead Speedway?" And I was just laughing. I was just like, first of all, we have zero budget. We have nothing. This event, we don't even know who would show up to this thing. I'm like, how in the world are they going to even let us on that course? So, but Joner being Joner, he's a hustler and he networks a lot, and he somehow got us an interview with the track president. And so we went in there with our longboards and we showed him our longboards, and and I showed him pictures of the ultra skate. We had a whole spiel for them, and very close to breaking this record, and how cool it would be if I broke the record on your course, and this, that, the other. And luckily, the president, Al Garcia, his son was in the longboarding. Sarah, where it's still pretty popular. Everybody has their longboard. Everybody has their Sector 9 pintail or whatever, sitting in their garage. And so he's like, no, my son, he likes to ride longboards. He rides them around in the neighborhood and stuff like that. So I kind of was like, oh yeah, I was like, this might happen. He might let us do this. And sure enough, yeah, they invited us in. They let us come in and host what is going to be the 13th. This upcoming in 2025 is going to be the 13th year of hosting the Miami Ultra Skate
13
at the Homestead. Yep, at the Homestead Speedway.
And it's been 13 in a row, right?
13 in a row. We haven't missed one. We caught a lot of flack for putting on the COVID one.
People showed up, so
people showed up, and and there was a lot of people that were upset about it too on one side, and on the other side I was like, this is an open air event, and I was like, and it's for those who are, if you're okay with coming and you're okay with traveling and whatever, we're here,
right,
and we're gonna do it. If it means 5 people show up, that's fine. We'll just do 5 or whatever. And and we ended up having good numbers. People came. So, but we did get a lot of flack for that one. Now it just doesn't, it kind of doesn't seem like such a big deal anymore. But yeah,
feels like it was light years away almost, the whole COVID thing.
But I did not miss. We have not met. We've been we've been going strong. We've seen management change over at the track, and times that we're like, oh, these guys don't know us and they're going to not care to have us there anymore. And we've had our hard times where they've double booked us and they've done a lot of crazy stuff and had our challenges of putting it on. So, but one way or another, it's there. And if you can make it out, you can make it out that year. If you can't, you can't. But we've been, 13 years solid.
It was nice to hear at the end of last year, the guy came out and was like, he said he wasn't the guy making the calls, but he was like, I really like what you guys are doing. Thanks for being respectful and stuff. So it's nice that like we make a good impression as a community.
Yeah, somehow. And I know the stigma that, the minute they hear like skateboarders are coming, they're probably kind of like, oh God, like what are we going to get? And sure, we are a colorful bunch. I mean, we got people out there dressed in costumes and whatever. And we are a colorful bunch, and we're very, what is the word I'm looking for? The range of like the people that come.
Diverse.
Is very diverse. Sorry, there it is. And we're a super diverse group and stuff, and it is cool. So, but I think in the end they realize that we are athletes, we are endurance athletes, and we're just doing it on a skateboard, and we're all out there to grind and to do a performance.
Talking about it makes me want to go back right now. Like I'm ready to ride 24. I'm not, but I want to. So. You mentioned though, like. You got this thing going 13 years ago at this point, pretty much.
Yeah.
And
2013.
Along the way, though, there's been a lot. Like you've broken a lot of the records. Most recently, Joe broke a record on the course. So that course has so much history too.
It does. So from 2013, I was repeatedly breaking the record. So I broke Paul Kent's 250. With a 262, which I laugh now because, and everybody was just amazed. Everybody was just like, wow, and I did. I caught a lot of, it was neat. More than for me, I felt it was great for the sport anyways of what we're doing. I got published in, a few sports journals, and, there was some buzz about it. Like, hey, there's these group of people that are skateboarding for 24 hours. So that was kind of neat that kind of like some buzz came out about it. And there was some publicity about it when I broke that record. And then the subsequent year, like I said, I had a good 5-year block here where all I did was train ultra skate. And so of course it was the next time I did it, I did a 280. And now it was like, holy cow, now you're starting to talk about 300. The only person I ever heard back in those days, even remotely talk about 300 was Paul Kent, which today I still think Paul Kent, if he was still skating in that era, he had things that were going on in his life, and he kind of had to step away from the sport. He would have been he probably would have been the first person to break 300. I mean, he was the talent to do it. Instead, it kind of fell on my lap now because I'm hosting this thing, I'm training it, I'm doing it, and I'm the closest one to getting it. But to me, it still seemed outlandish. I kept doing the numbers. I knew my training, I knew my body, and I knew roughly where your heart rate has to sit for 24 hours to be able to withstand 24 hours of skating. And it wasn't there. It just wasn't there. Like the 12.5 miles an hour, when I would do it and I would start to get deep into a training session, and I was like, no, it's not there. Like I don't think it's possible. At least it wasn't possible for me. Here I'm in my late 30s, and I'm like the saying I always like to say is, the older I get, the faster I was.
Right.
And I'm, and I'm kind of thinking like, and it's just kind of, it's not going to, maybe I'll show the way for like the next generation or the next younger guy to be able to get the 300. But I was seriously like, in my mind was like, nah, I'm just not going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what changed is when I started going to the Dutch Ultra Skate, and I went over to the Netherlands, and a great group of, athletes were over there. And I was kind of like, wow, because prior to this, I'm the only person skating deep into the night doing this distance at that time. When I did the 262, the 283, I was all alone. There was just nobody there yet. And I think it was because part of it was I had my nutrition dialed. I already knew from death races and from ultra marathons. I was the guy that had all the tailwinds lined up and all the packages set up for every hour, and everybody else is like eating a cheeseburger and, and doing whatever, and I had it broken down scientifically. I knew my calorie count. I knew my carb count. I knew all that stuff. And now it's funny now, fast forward 13 years later, and you look on pit row and everybody has their stuff set up and ready to go, like scientifically, like I did. So I think that was kind of a part of it, is I just was ahead of everybody on that section, on that part of it, with the nutrition and kind of understanding it, and and just training really good. So until I went to the Dutch and started meeting the Dutchies over there and realized, like, these guys are badass. These guys can hold their own. They were skating, just as far as me. And I met my counterpart with Rick Pronk. I had met my counterpart. This guy, me and him went toe to toe at the Dutch Ultra, and we co-owned a world record, the 285.
Yeah.
285. So we crossed the line exactly the same time. We couldn't shed one from the other. During the 24 hours, I got a lap or two up on him. He got a lap or two up on me. And then somewhere about 6 hours out, we just locked into each other, and that was it. And we kind of knew we were pushing our max, and there was nobody who was going to pull a move to get a whole lap ahead of the other one.
Mm-hmm.
It was set there that we knew. And so we were kind of doing the math, and we were like, yep, if we kind of keep this pace, like we can break my record of 283 with, maybe a lap or two and get the 285. And so it went down like that. So we co-owned a record there. And that's when I started realizing, like, yeah, like these guys, I got some people that can hang with me, and I got some guys that can really push hard. And this is gonna advance us. And it was funny too, because in my mindset, like, to me, they were just my buddies, my friends. I would share with them anything they wanted. I'd tell Leonard, like, this is exactly how I'm doing my nutrition. I had no problems telling I wanted the community to get better. I wanted everybody to, like, be in a 300 train and going for it, everybody being able to accomplish it. So there was no, like, hey, I want to be the best. I need to hold secrets. I need to do this, that, and the other. I was super open about everything. And I knew that the best way to advance us as a whole and our sport was for other people to equally be as good as me, or better.
That's a great way to look at it.
And so I was looking at it in the long terms like that. So I was completely very open about it, and I'm glad I was, because I felt like not only was it just helped the sport, but I think it helped me the way I am. I'm not like a cutthroat guy or anything like that has a be it. I feel like I feed off of others, and I feed off of other people's, good energy. So truthfully, that was the road to 300, was actually getting everybody else around me to be there equally, gunning for it and to have a true chance. So that was the eye opener. That Dutch Ultra, 2000.
I think that's 2015, right?
2015, yeah. That was my eye opener of, like, I got guys here that can do this too with me. Yeah, and then so subsequently the next year, the 2016. The planets aligned. We had good weather at Ultra Skate. We didn't have any rain. I had Rick Pronk there along. A couple other Dutchies were doing the team thing, but I had Eric Palmer. He was now coming into his own. He could hold it, and that was it, man. And that was exactly what we needed. That was a good group there that we, like, hung together and had camaraderie, and and worked well as a team, basically as a peloton, with the same mindset of trying to hit this 300. So that was a culmination of basically 5 years of training and dialing my nutrition. All came to that head moment right there to make it happen. So, and unfortunately, Rick, I don't know if it was the time travel coming over to the States, the heat, the Miami stuff, he ended up bonking out and kind of falling off the pace in the last 4 hours. He couldn't hold on to it. And me and Eric kept it going, and we ended up crossing the 300s. Me with the 309, the 309.5, and Eric had the 305. So that was the first time we could show the world that humanity can skateboard 300 miles in 24 hours.
Crazy, cool. Yeah. 9
and
miles
then subsequently,
over, not to mention,
yeah,
just like a whole 40 minutes, right? Like at that base, it's like a 40-minute. You were like 40 minutes early.
And then the cool thing was to watch other people then start to break it as well. Once you show that something is doable, now you start seeing, it's a whole group of Dutch guys at the Dutch Ultra Skate that started crossing. Leonard, the race director of the Dutch, he did it with a handful of guys. And then the emergence of Rick Pronk just showing his dominance of basically not only 300 miles, but 500 kilometers, which is now over 310 miles. So over 310 miles is 500 kilometers. So that had not been hit by anybody. I got super close. I did a 309.5. I was off by one lap. I could have had a 500 kilometer feather in my cap, but I'm glad it was for Rick. And Rick, showed everybody like, I'm going to hit, 313 miles, and I'm going to do it repeatedly. He's one of the few that has just repeatedly hit. I have only hit 300 one time, Rick repeatedly, year after year for 2 or 3 years, would just putting in his pocket 300 milers, boom, 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 boom.
He's
just
a beast.
Amazing.
And he still crushes it, right? He crushed 6 hour at the Dutch. That was insane.
Yeah, and he came out, crushed a 6 hour. He ran a 2 hour 30 something marathon, the Rotterdam Marathon, and he ran it at that's a pretty competitive freaking.
That's fast.
That's ridiculously fast, ridiculously fast. I mean, when you start running a marathon in 2.5 hours, you're very upper echelon of the running world. So, and he crushed one. And he crushed one just recently at that pace, and I'm just like, Jesus, Rick, you're just a beast. And all this came from Rick. Was funny story. Rick started distance skateboarding because he wanted to quit smoking.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
That was Rick doesn't get enough publicity, and he doesn't get enough limelight, and because he is just the most humblest guy in the world. And he will not talk about himself, and he will not boast about himself, and he will not put himself in front of a camera. And I felt like that guy and what he has accomplished has gone, a little bit under the radar just because of who he is. And because of who he is, I love him so much because he is like a genuine, real deal guy, just a super, super cool guy, a great human.
Yeah, Rick is awesome. They breed them well out there, the endurance athletes.
They do. They have, I don't know what it is, what's in the water, what's on their bike paths over there, but man, they, and for such a, relative to us in the United States, what is a small country, they have amazing skaters, amazing distance skaters. Yeah. Cause Saskia was, the female world record holder, which just recently got broken finally. Cause her 262 sat on the books for quite a while there. And the UK Ultra, Lena, congratulations, Lena. She took it down. So she is now the official female world record holder. That's a monumental task because that was a long-standing record that went on for a good 5 years. That's been sitting on the books there with nobody threatening it. So Lena came out and laid it down. And from what I've heard, I don't know that I have not been or seen much about the UK course, but I don't think I heard that UK course is kind of a tough course.
Yeah.
It has like a gradual hard climb, and stuff like that. And it's not a gimme. It's not a gimme on that course.
I spoke
either.
with Paul about it, and he was saying it got wet, right? Because it's the UK, and it just it does that sometimes. And there is a hill. There is some climbing you have to do. So it's not super chill. I don't know if any courses are super chill. I guess the Dutch one's pretty amazing, but.
So this is my analogy because people go, "Oh, the Dutch one's easier than the Miami one," and because they got the smoother asphalt, but they have a bunch of turns in theirs, and sharp turnarounds. They're not super sharp, but they have their turns because it's a double horseshoe. Is how I always give the analogy of theirs. You have a horseshoe and then an inner horseshoe, and so at the tip of that horseshoe, when you got to turn back in to do your inside loop, that's kind of a sharp turn. Those are little thieves that steal, they steal your speed, they steal your energy, and they steal your, they take it from you and you don't realize it. And so they do have that. They do have that side where ours is just a nice oval. Yes, we don't have the greatest asphalt on some of the sections. And we do have turn one. The climb out of turn one is always kind of a pain in the ass, but it pays you back on turn four. Turn four, you get good 30, 40, almost to a minute of rest where you can just tuck down in a position and you can roll in from turn four down in the pit row and you don't have to push at all. You're like, oh, I can rest. Where the Dutch has no resting. They have a weird, wacky, 6-foot hump that they have in theirs, but it's a very fast, like up and down.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the down comes with a turn. So as soon as you come down, any speed that you gain, you lose it in the turn. So there's no advantage, a place to rest. Where the Miami, you got one little section you can rest on. You can finally go, oh, freaking A, like, okay, one more lap, we're done. Yeah. All right, let's do this all over again. Now back to pit row, pump through pit row, push up turn one, face the winds on the backstretch, fight the winds on the backstretch, get around turn three. All right, turn four, rest. Okay, back in. Okay, let's do it again, and that's your grind. So
the timing on the downhill at Miami is really nice, right? Because you're saying, you're coming right into pit row at that point. So like, if you're feeling like you want to quit, it's like, oh no, I'm good. I feel better now, and then you do another lap. And as soon as you leave pit row, you're like, oh fuck, I don't want to do this because you're going uphill. And then you come back around, you're like, oh no, it's okay. And then you go up, it's like the timing is better, or is nice.
Yep. I'm starting to actually realize the time, and I'm like, we had so many other things we were going to talk about. I didn't realize Ultra Skate was gonna eat up and prehistory.
It's
but
all
anyways,
good.
You know what? There's a whole nother. I feel like we could do a whole nother podcast on the Skate Across America.
Skate Across America, and even the Skate Across Florida thing, if you wanted to.
And the Skate Across Florida. So
I know you got to check out.
I don't know. Maybe we save the Skate Across America for another day.
Would you be down to come back?
Yeah. I always love hanging out and talking with you. So I would definitely, maybe we'll save that one for another day. But I'll segment this. The Skate Across America, as awesome as it was and as scary as it was and everything else, what I loved and I took away from that was the guys like Justin Bright and Paul Kent that have been skate packing. And or through skating, I guess there's two terms I feel like running out there. Isn't
I don't
there?
know which I use them interchangeably, but I don't know if
they're interchangeably, but basically I think they're two of the same. It's skate packing or through skating, and basically what it is more of being self-sufficient, open road, point A to point B, or more of a journey, more of an experience. And truthfully, I feel like that is like more of like the true heart and soul of distance skating, more than being on a set track, doing round and round and round. That was my world for a long time, and I was super obsessed about it. And and numbers and how fast and can you hold this and whatever. And it was just such a breath of fresh air to go like out and just like. And it was scary. Don't get me wrong. It was scary to skateboard across the United States, and you're doing it. And it was awesome. It was in a team fashion. You were sharing this trauma and this fear with 4 other guys as we did this in relay fashion. And there was times I was just like, I'm going to die today. I know it. Like today I'm dying. It was almost that bad. Wow. There was a couple areas through the United States crossing the Tetons. There was a couple days that I was just like, we're going to die today. Like, this is insane. This is bonkers what we're doing out here. But at the same time, there was a lot of just these hallelujah moments, where you're just like, there's no other place in the world that I'd rather be than right now on this farm road, like with this gorgeous freaking sunrise, and just like, I'm just skating out here, and I'm just out in the elements, and I'm just, and we're crossing the whole entire continent, So it was a whole big mixed bag is what I'll summarize that. And we can get into details one day about this event on another one. But it shook me from that whole competitive side of the course, the numbers, the distance, the whatever. And it made me realize there is something really cool and enjoyable about just grinding it out and having your thoughts to yourself and skating and enjoying and sucking in the environment around you and what's kind of going on and stuff like that, which is what comes with pack skating or through skating, being basically out. So after the Skate Across America, I started kind of realizing, I was like, there's a lot of trails in Central Florida, and I have done some of them at an event that Scott Ziegler, the guy running the Skate IDSA right now, or kind of our head honcho at Skate IDSA, he was putting on some events and a thing called Skate Camp, which is a lot of fun. Anybody out there listening, this is a really cool one because it's more geared towards group riding and stuff like that. Sure, there's, we'll throw maybe a race one of the days, but it's like a whole weekend of skating and coming back to a camp and camping. And so between that and Mark Harris is another guy who has a wealth of knowledge of rails or trails in Florida, and he skates a lot of them too. So between that, him, and then just me generally just getting out and skating in hitting places that I was, probably training for something, I started realizing, I was like, there is a lot of rails to trails and bike paths, independent bike paths all through Central Florida. And I was like, can we piece those together and do a coast to coast? And so the idea was to never set foot on a roadway, never set foot on an active roadway, and to be able to get across from one side of the state to the other. And so that was my challenge. And so me and my girlfriend Sabrina, we went out. She was kind of my help, my support. She kind of drove the car and kind of met me at trailheads with a couple different apps, a couple different of these trail apps. I started to piece this thing together. And so I took it from Titusville. So it's from the Space Coast of Titusville. I was able to get to basically the Gulf Coast. And I did it with 85% of it was bike paths, never being on the roadway. 5% of it was sidewalk surfing, where there was a couple sections that I was like, okay, here there's no path, but at least there's a sidewalk that I can skate on the sidewalk, and I actually don't have to be on the road. And there was only 10% of a section that had nothing. That was just open road that I would have had to skate it. And it was funny. I got to that point, and it's somewhere right in the middle of the state after you pass these couple of lakes, Opelika. And I tried to go through the farmlands. I tried to find some empty roads because the only section that really crossed perfectly to where the next trail picked up was this Highway 50, and it was just full of truckers and cars, and it was very busy. And I was just standing there kind of on the shoulder of the road. Some kind of like trauma came in that was just like the skate across America and just feeling the semi trucks over your shoulder. And I didn't want to do it. And I was just like, nope, I'm going to pick up and I'll pick up for this section, and we'll drive over to where the trail picks up again, the bike trail, and I'll complete it. So there was a 20-mile section that I did not skate. So I have not officially done a coast to coast yet on my own, board. I just did not, for some reason, I did not feel like weathering it. I didn't feel like, putting myself in that situation, especially after skating 90% of this on a bike trail, like the safety of a bike trail, no cars, no incident. It was just such an awesome feeling. The asphalt on all these trails was really, really good. We always laugh, and, me and Scott Ziegler always rate stuff, 1 to 10 and whatever. And I would say everything on this trail was like a 7 and above, like just really good pavement. There was maybe one section that was kind of like, kind of iffy, but everything was really good. And the one cool thing though was when I picked up for that 20-mile section and we started driving across, I look over to the left, and there's a bike trail being built.
Oh, sick.
Connecting. So they are actively, and I did this, I don't know, somewhere in the beginning of this year when I did this, I attempted to piece this together. So I would probably say maybe coming up here near the end of the year, I'm going to try to see if I can figure out if that section, that 20-mile section has been done. That 20-mile section has been done, then we have it. We have what, would be a coast to coast, crossing Florida, skate through trail that is relatively safe because you're on bike trails and maybe a little bit of sidewalks, but you can get across from state to state. So not that I would really want to turn this into, say, an event, but I would love to turn this into something that where people meet at the beginning of this and everybody kind of skates it at their own pace of where they want to stop, how many days they want to take to do it. If somebody wants to be gung-ho and gun it and maybe say, I want to try to set the FKT for it, the fastest known time, I will have the beta of exactly which trail to take, because it's a labyrinth of trails. And you constantly have to be like looking at your thing because you're like, okay, this one connects to that one connects to this one connects. So there's a little bit of zigzagging as you go across, but it's connected.
That's so cool. You could even like pick up people along the way.
Yeah, if somebody was kind of like, hey, I'll pick you guys up here and I'll skate with you for a little bit or whatever. once I get this done through and through, and get it, do a through skate of the whole thing, I think we'll start doing like invites out to, and I call it chasing sunsets because I like to do it from the East Coast going to the West Coast. So essentially, the sun
Oh,
is setting in the West, and you're chasing the sunset every day. So I call it chasing sunsets,
I love it.
coast to coast skate of Florida. So that's kind of my next little project and my next little baby that I kind of want to get into, and I kind of feel like that epitomizes more where I'm at in my life and the direction I want to go with my distance skating is more of some of through skating or pack skating where you're kind of carrying your stuff, you're relying on making it to a town to resupply your water and your snacks and your food and whatever. And if you want to, stop in a place and get in a hotel, are you carrying maybe a light little tarp that you want to set up in a sleeping bivvy and you kind of want to sleep on the trail and go at it the next morning? It's just, it's there for whatever level of intensity you want to take from it. And all from the safety of never really having to go out on the roadway, I think is really, really clutch and really cool.
Yeah, those types of events are really the best, right? We talked about Ladiga already, and you mentioned like racing it, but a lot of people just go to finish it, and like the fact that you're on a trail the whole time is such a privilege. So to
Yes,
design an event
exactly.
like what you're saying, it does a lot for someone like me. Like now I could just follow your lead and know exactly how to go from coast to coast in Florida and have that experience.
And that's exactly what I want. I want to get and I can't remember exactly it's called like a XP something, TPX something. There's a file that you can get down off of your Garmin.
Oh, okay.
And you can share that, and people can upload that to their own Garmin, and then so now they are not having to think so much of, wait, let me pull out my piece of paper. Okay, no, I need to cross the street here and catch that trail over there to do it. But you can upload these to the Garmin, and the Garmin will direct you. Your Garmin or your phone, you can put these probably in the certain apps, and it'll just be like, nope, you're left turning here, and you're going here. And I discovered that because Paul Kent was using it on our Skate Across America. He was uploading every day our segments, and he had them on his phone on his Garmin watch. And I was just dumbfounded. I was like, Garmin does that? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even know that ability. So that's what I want to do. I want to do the skate through, get the beta of having that recorded, and then I can share that on, some kind of social media platform, be like, here is Chasing Sunsets, coast to coast, Florida. This is the route. It is set. It is good. Here's your start point. You can do dip your back wheels into the Atlantic Ocean, and you can dip your front wheels into the Gulf Coast when you make it to the other side. And so the start and finish point is exactly from a water source to a water point.
That's like a ritual you can have as part of the event.
Yes, we did it. We did it in the Skate Across America. We dipped our rear wheels in the Atlantic Ocean, and then on the Pacific side, we actually rode our boards into the water because we were so excited of hitting the coast over there in Oregon that we literally skated into the water and had some a jubilant moment there.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we'll definitely have to do another one about that whole journey, and we can even dig into more stuff. I'm sure there's plenty of things we can talk about.
Yeah, maybe by then I'll have the Chasing Sunset beta all complete, and we can kind of talk about that. But yeah, the Skate Across America needs its own whole little thing, I think, because there's a lot to unfold there. There's a lot that I would like to tell people about that journey, that adventure.
Might even be worth getting a couple of the other guys on as well.
Actually, that would be really, really rad. I personally, that would be a great reunion if somehow we could like do all four of us again on a podcast awesome. And kind of so that we could bounce off of each other, like, hey, you remember when this or how did you feel about that? Or because there was a lot there that kind of like, because you get done with that. You lived with these guys in a van for 17 days. We got it done in 17 days and 6 hours flat. And, and this was like our life. This was your family. This was your whole existence was just like these four guys. And then, and then the Smith is Jack Smith and his son. driving the van and plotting the course. And like, this was our whole existence. And then it just kind of like, we celebrated at the end, but it was like abrupt, boom, and everybody was back to life, So that would be really, really cool, Max, if you could get us all back together
Yeah,
again
for sure.
for like a little reminiscence thing. So I think that's the proper way to
Cool.
handle that one.
Yeah, I'll start reaching out for sure. Is there anything else we didn't go over that you wanted to get out?
No, I just to shamelessly promote my Miami Ultra Skate, which
Yeah.
we have dates now for. And and I apologize, guys. I know a lot of people get like, hey, when the dates? But there's a lot to dealing with the track guys, and how their schedule looks. And we really want to have the track when there's like nobody else there, because we've had problems where they've double booked us, or like race cars are coming like the next day and we're like destroyed and tired and we're trying to move our stuff and the race cars are pulling into the
Yeah.
bays. And so we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. And so we're always like, and believe it or not, that track is like booked all year round. You think it's just NASCAR, but it's booked all year round. They have stuff going on. So it gets tedious to try to figure out a date with them. It is February 25th. Yes, don't double look your calendar. That is a Tuesday. So I apologize. I know it's not, the greatest of things, but I kind of feel like most people that come to Ultra Skate, it's a destination type thing anyways, and you're taking some days off. So maybe, maybe you have the weekend to fly in. Monday, we're already camping on site. Tuesday's the event, and then Wednesday we're done and everybody can fly out. And I kind of feel like we can front load on this one. So now everybody might be coming in for the weekend. We can meet up on the weekend. We can have like a pre Ultra Skate ride. We can, have some fun at the, maybe there's more chance to talk pre-event than after the event, where everybody's just destroyed and like, I'm going home, getting the hell out of here. I hate everything. I hate everybody, and all those feelings you have after beating yourself up at Ultra. So maybe it works out, but yes, it is a Tuesday. It was the best we could do without, getting put on with, something very tight and squeezed in between two race car, events. So that's it. Registration, we are working on it. We're going to have it up and running. We were, iffy with the timing guy. The timing guy wasn't sure if he could do it this year. Now it looks like he's back, and our registration platform was with the timing guy these last couple of years. So it looks like we're going to be up and running here the next week.
Yeah. I don't, obviously we can't go off now, but like, it'd be really fun to have a conversation about like the best day to have an Ultra Skate as far as like day of the week. And I think actually Tuesday, like I've talked about this with a lot of people like who have done the event, some support people who just come to the event, right? And it's like Tuesday might be the best day for what you said, because the biggest criticism is we don't get to hang out with each other. We're too busy preparing for the event 24 hours before, 24 hours after, and then during, right? So like that eats up half of your vacation, right? Or your entire weekend. So like,
so maybe this kind of works out where you can come in on the weekend and you have the whole weekend where we can all meet up, and then we know, all right, Monday, let's all get down to the track and set up camp and get ready for Tuesday to destroy ourselves. And then Wednesday, hobble your ass onto a plane and go home.
Yeah. And if you're fortunate enough to take like a whole week off, you just take that middle 5 days and you get, obviously that's a lot of time to take off. So, but
exactly.
Yeah, you have to commit if you're going to do a 24-hour anyway. All right, cool. So Chasing Sunsets, that's going to be awesome. I'm going to look forward to that. I will be at Miami myself. I'm sure a lot of people are. Well, one question I wanted to ask you: are you coming to Ladiga 2025?
So unfortunately, what happened lately in my life, and because I was kind of the Iron Man of Ladiga. I was one of the only guys that had done it since its start for a 5-year block. I had a 5-year block where I didn't miss a single Ladiga, and of course it fell off and I broke it. I broke the streak, when I had the 5 years straight. And I think I was the only person back then that had done all 5 in a row. So, but unfortunately Ladiga falls on this other, ultra running, event that I like to do with the Endurance Society up in Vermont. That's the one where I ran 10 marathons in 10 days and, and crazy stuff like that. And I really, really like going to those events. I always like to pick at least one running event to do. I call it the keep me honest thing, because for some reason, just running ultra marathons, just like, man, they hand me my
Nice.
ass like really bad. Like, but so I like to do them just to kind of keep myself honest with like, it's a big humble pie of like, yeah, you thought you were a badass skater. Watch this. Yeah. Now what, Andy? Huh? So unfortunately, and those fall like right close to each other, and it's a big commitment to go out to Vermont. This year, I want to do 200. I want to do their 250-mile course. They have a course of 250 miles. You have 5 days to finish this 250 miles. It's all through the Green Mountains of Vermont, so it's summiting, all the mountains up there. It's rugged trail. They're really
Brutal.
intense, and I wanna try to put that feather in my cap. I have a couple hundred milers I've done. I've done that 10 marathons in 10 days, but the next one event that they have that I want to complete is 250 miles, running 250 miles in 5 days. So, and that's going to basically fall right on top of, the
Hmm.
Ladiga. So unfortunately, I have been MIA now for quite a few years from Ladiga, but I will come back. I promise. I am now into the sup skateboarding, and I want to take a peek at DJ's times and Jeremiah's times and see what they had done at Chip even and see what they had done it, how they have completed it. Cause that is not an easy course
No.
to do a paddle, to do a strict paddle with those hills and stuff. That is going to be a serious challenge. So, but I want to come back and I want to do it as a sup skateboarder.
That'd be awesome. That'd be so
So,
cool.
it is there. So please, to the race director, Carlos, just steadfast, keep that event going for me because I will be back one day.
Hell yeah. Yeah, Ladiga is a great one. Yeah, and then social media, can people reach out to you if they have questions about anything?
They do. I'm super, super bad. I do apologize. I just don't. I'm not on
Okay.
social media. I
No
get on there
worries.
every now and then because I recorded something cool from my adventure and I want to pop on and I go, oh, look, I have like 50 messages on my Instagram and I go through it, and they're from months back and I kind of feel bad, but I just don't. I'm just not on there very often. I'm not from that era. I'm not from that era. I'm not from that generation. And I just don't get on there very often.
That's totally fine. Yeah.
But you can reach out at some point. I do answer everybody back. I do love talking to people. I do love giving advice, anything like that. So I promise I will answer back. If you send me a message and inquire about something, I'm more than happy to share my knowledge, my wealth that I have attained through all my craziness, and I will flat out tell you it with no problems. I have no secrets to hide from anybody because I want everybody to succeed. And I want everybody to have an awesome, whatever adventure it is.
And the Miami Ultra Skate is the Instagram that would have, or will there be updates to that Instagram page? I think it's called at Miami Ultra Skate.
Yeah, it's the Miami Ultra Skate, I think. And thank God, like, I have a couple people that help me with that because same thing, like it would just fall by the wayside. It's not very well thing, but at least I know people who are good at it, like Scott Ziegler, or IDSA guy. I think I've given him the password to that one and been like, here, dude, like help me out because I don't get on this thing at all. Like,
It's a lot of work
see,
too.
see if you
it's
want
not
to do some
necessarily
posts.
super straightforward.
I just don't. I don't know. I just don't. It just doesn't. Yeah, I'd rather just pull my molars out than sit there and make posts on social media.
That's valid. Anyway, yeah, thanks for coming on the show, taking time out of your day and your vacation. Enjoy California. Sounds like you got some fun stuff planned.
Thank you. Yep, I got some fun stuff going on. We're gonna try to hit. We're gonna be in a camper van and we're gonna just dirtbag it around, go see what adventures we can get into, go out to the Sierras, maybe wind up in Yosemite, and then we do have camping permits for Havasupai in the Grand Canyon, which is a very majestic special place. It's a reservation that's 12 miles down in the Grand Canyon. The only way to get there is to hike down the canyons to
neat.
it. And we got a permit to be able to camp there for 3 days. And if you look up Havasupai, you'll see it's an amazing turquoise blue waterfalls on desert backgrounds, like just something a very magical place. So, and we scored camping permits for it. So that's going to be the culmination of our trip. And then I'll be back in Miami, grinding it out back at the fire department and life in
Great.
general.
Yeah, sounds like a ton of fun. I'll look that up for
Yep.
sure. And you might be taking pictures. I'm sure they won't see it. Well, we won't see them on social media, but
That is so amazing that those will wind up on
Sweet.
Instagram. Yes, I will share those, because that is there'll be a couple things that I just won't not be able to be like, I got to take a picture of that.
Well, enjoy the experiences.
Max, thank you for your time. All the listeners out there, thank you if you put up with going through however long this when you edited down. I don't know, but whatever. Listening, and hey, I'm out here. Come join us for an adventure. Let's skate across the state of Florida, or come grind it out at Ultrascape.
Hell yeah. Thanks, Andy.
All right, buddy. Cheers.